Here we go. So, you've got £100,000 to spend on an SUV. Maybe you want something old school like the Mercedes G-Class. Or maybe you want something luxurious to be driven around in, like the new Range Rover. Or maybe you just want something electric, like the BMW iX. In this review, we're comparing these three SUVs inside, we're taking them on the road, we're going to do a bit of off-roading as well, and we're going to pick a winner. But before we get into all that, if you want to see lots more reviews like this, then make sure you subscribe to our channel. And for a great deal on your next car, go to whatcar.com. Okay, so let's start this review by looking at the interior of the G-Class. And the first thing I want to do is let you listen to the door. Now, that is how a door should sound when you close it. It is properly solid, very sturdy, and that is very much the theme of this interior. It feels really robust. There's no cheap, flappy bits, and it's not just impressive in terms of how well it's all been put together, but the materials are still really, really high quality as well. This is a very expensive SUV, but it feels and it looks like a very expensive SUV. And this is the least new car that we have here, this second generation Mercedes G-Class. But even compared to the other impressive interiors that we've got here today, this is just about the best here. Another reason it's so good, this infotainment system. Now, it's not touchscreen. You control all the functions either with the voice command system or using this rotary dial down here. And it is just so much better having these physical controls to use this system rather than something that's touchscreen only and just way more difficult to use while you're driving. So there is definitely lots in the G-Class that's very impressive up front. Now, the iX's interior is a very different approach to the G-Classes, which is much more old school compared to the futuristic and minimalist interior that you have here. And also, for a start, the doors don't sound anywhere near as good in the iX, although they are soft close, which is pretty luxurious to have. Now, the rest of this looks very impressive and the build quality is good as well. For the most part, although there are some places where it doesn't quite feel as solid as the G-Class, and the materials are mostly good again, although there are some cheaper feeling parts, particularly these stalks on the steering column, which feel like they're out of a 1 Series. So if you're buying an iX, we would definitely recommend speccing the Loft Pack to get some plusher materials and more of them as well. It doesn't cost that much extra, but it does lift things in here a bit. But still, overall, this is a very good SUV interior. Something else cool is the roof. So if you look at it now, you can see that it is opaque. But if you press this button, then you can effectively open the sunroof and get a view out into the outside world, which is quite cool. And something else that's really good about it is the infotainment system, for the most part though, because for many years we've always said BMW's iDrive is the best infotainment system out there. But with this latest version, they've made it very complicated. The good thing is you've still got this rotary dial down here. You've also got this responsive touchscreen, which is really bright, has really good graphics. But the problem is it has just got so many menus and sub-menus. You're hardly ever going to use any of these really small icons here because you're just going to get in this car, use Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, and then get on with your day. Now, the new Range Rover. The showroom appeal of this car is very, very good, particularly in this spec where you've got this nice bright feeling in here. These materials feel really plush as well, but it's not very consistent in here. So the build quality is a bit patchy in places. So look down on the center console here, you've got this wobbly bit of trim. And also some of these materials aren't as good as what you'll find in the other cars. So the plastics in particular, they feel good, but they're just not quite as plush as other rivals. The most disappointing bit is this massive slab of silver plastic around the steering wheel here. No matter how much money you spend on your Range Rover, you're going to have this bit of plastic here. And that's especially annoying because you've got these really nice metallic paddle shifters here, but they couldn't be bothered or they probably couldn't afford putting it all on the steering wheel or making this a bit nicer as well. That's a shame. But still, overall, this is a good interior with a decent infotainment system that's got a simpler layout to the BMWs, but it's only voice command and it's only the touchscreen itself to control it. So overall, there's no doubting this is a very, very impressive interior, but it's just a shame that the look of it hasn't been backed up by properly knockout build quality and materials. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do in this light bit of off-roading is test the axle articulation in these SUVs. Now, the G-Wagon and the Range Rover, they are proper hardcore off-roaders, aren't they? The BMW iX, to be fair to BMW, they don't say that it's built for extreme off-roading, but we're still going to see if it's capable of doing anything at all or whether it's absolutely not. So the Range Rover and the G-Wagon have already gone through this course. Let's see if the iX can do it as well. The ground clearance on the BMW iX is rather lower than the other two cars, about 200 millimeters. The Range Rover is almost 300. I'm already a bit scared, to be honest. It's quite strange how quiet everything is as well. Obviously with no engine. Oh God. Oh, the first test. Ah! That's just struggling a bit for traction, but we've made it. We've made it so we're already further than I thought we were going to go. Still all right? Yeah? It's your fault if it's not. I'll go slightly to the right. Okay. Slightly to the right, now straight. Done. Mate. That's great. This is big boy course, so I'm going to start trying to go up this one in the Range Rover first. So now I've got it in rock crawl, I've got low range, gearbox engaged, and I've got several people all trying to help me not destroy this £100,000 car. Great driving position, super high, got all these cameras helping me out as well. Okay, so far, we're going. Just try and get over this. Nice and smooth. Does not feel very dramatic from here. Oh God. Yep. Great. Easy. Mate, absolutely smashed it. That was great. Right, G. Okay, so there's no off-road mode as such in the G-Wagon, but what I am going to do is lock all of these diffs. 1, 2, and 3. To just try and force it through if it's struggling for traction. I'm also going to put it in low range. Now the ground clearance is actually quite a bit lower than the Range Rover at its maximum. So although the Range Rover found this relatively easy, I'm not quite so confident about the G-Wagon. Keep going, force it through. Managing it okay now, and pretty much with very little drama, another win. So it's not going to do it, obviously, but how far can it get? Let's find out. Okay, easy does it. Ooh. Already feeling quite a bit. Is that already close? Oh, there was a noise. Yeah? This will be the bit where it gets interesting, he says. It's quite difficult to... I don't think anyone's breathing. Struggling for traction there, but it's okay. No? Okay, done. Well, a valiant effort. Okay, so now which of these cars is quickest uphill? The iX is considerably quicker on a flat, normal bit of road, but will it beat the other two going uphill? Let's find out.
3, 2, 1, go!
Here we go. I'm off, I've launched. Range Rover's quite close, but over the line. Easy. Oh, the Range Rover almost got some air. Oh, wow. Well, it should have been a bonus point, I think, for the Range Rover. Oh, wow. That was terrific. But I think the iX wins. Now, the outcome of that race may well have been different if it was raining or very slippery up there, but the fact is, when it's dry, uphill, downhill, in a straight line, this iX is significantly quicker than the Range Rover and the Mercedes G-Class that we have here. This is the iX xDrive 50, which is above the entry-level iX, and this gets 516 brake horsepower, which is almost 200 brake horsepower more than what you get in the G400D and the D350 Range Rover. And the way that this builds speed is ridiculous, frankly, because this is actually the heaviest car here. It's more than 2.5 tons, but flatten your right foot and it really takes off. It is so quick, freakishly quick. But it's not just about straight line speed in the iX, because this is a relatively good car to drive as well. The steering's nicely weighted and accurate. And because this isn't the entry-level iX, this gets adaptive air suspension as standard, which not only makes it very comfortable, but also helps keep it tied down so it doesn't feel like a big, tall, heavy SUV that's flying around if you go around a corner quickly. And going for this version of the iX also gets you a bigger battery, 101 kilowatt hours, which gives it a massive claimed range over 300 miles. So there certainly is loads to like about this car. The Range Rover is similarly impressive on the road. Like the iX, this rides very nicely indeed, but they are quite different. So in the Range Rover, you have quite a nice floaty sensation to the ride quality, whereas in the iX, it feels more tied down and firmer as a result of that. Whereas in the Range Rover, it's really nice and soft. But because you have a bit of that float, it means that if you do hit a big bump, then it can be quite prone to taking a while to settle down again. But for the most part, really, progress in the Range Rover is so smooth, so comfortable. It's a bit noisier than the iX. Of course, you've got an engine making some noise, which you don't have in an electric car. And okay, it is not as quick as the iX that we have here, but this D350 Range Rover with its 3-litre 6-cylinder diesel engine is quick enough. It's as quick as you'd ever really want this car to go. The gearbox is quite hard to fault as well. If you want a quick burst of acceleration off the line, then okay, it can feel a little bit lazy and it hunts around for a gear if you want it to kick down while you're on the move as well. But for the most part, when you're driving normally, if you're just around town or on the motorway, it is very smooth. It never really feels anything other than a really massive heavy SUV, but it handles, again, perfectly fine for the kind of driving that this car is going to need to do. The body control isn't as good as it is in the iX, but it's still fine. The steering, though, is very light, very, very light. So that means around town, it's great. Off-roading, it's also great. But when you're going at faster speeds and you really want to tune into what the front wheels are doing, get a bit more weight build up in the steering, the Range Rover doesn't offer that. It always feels very light, even in dynamic mode. Now the G-Class. In some ways, this is a difficult car to talk about in an objective way because so many people love the way this car looks, they love what it represents, they love what it stands for. But the harsh reality is that objectively, on the road, it's not very good. The reason it's not very good is partly because this is very old school in its ethos. So the G-Wagon has a body-on-frame construction, it's got a rigid rear axle, it's got only independent front suspension, and all of that is great for off-road. It means this is properly epic off-road. But on the road, when you compare it to other SUVs that have got more sophisticated suspension setups, then this just really isn't very good compared to them. And I can feel all the bumps that we're going over a lot more than the other cars as well. Every impact's a bit harsher. You can hear everything passing underneath it as well. There's even some vibrations through the pedals a bit because of the engine. It's not slow, the engine's pretty good, the gearbox is pretty good as well, but it's just a bit rough and ready on the road compared to pretty much every other expensive SUV that it's up against. The handling isn't very good either. This steering's really heavy, but it's very prone to understeer. It doesn't feel agile at all, really. And because you're essentially driving a brick at 70 miles an hour, the wind noise whipped up around these pillars here is pretty loud. So it's epic off-road. Completely get it if you love everything about this car. But unfortunately, objectively, it's not great on the road. So with the G-Class in third place, how do you pick a winner between the other two? Well, the fact that one has an engine and one has a battery might make the decision for you. But if you're still picking between the two after taking that into account, then the iX is a very convincing luxury SUV with class-leading refinement and impressive driving dynamics. But the Range Rover is just about the better pick, and our winner here. It has lots of similar qualities to the iX, and on top of all that, even though we only scratched the surface in this video, it is incredibly capable off-road, and it's a little more practical when it comes to rear seat space and boot capacity. For much more on all of these SUVs, go to whatcar.com, where you can also get a great deal on your next car. But before you go, tell us which one is your winner in the comments below. And subscribe to our channel to see lots more reviews like this.